Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special webinar conference, Leveraging Cybersecurity to Deliver a Superior Online Customer Experience. My name is Bida Walaka and from Escom, and I will be the host for this webinar session. We're here to talk about building a superior online experience. It's a tall task, and there's definitely a lot behind it. And we'll be discussing the many ways e-commerce companies are adapting to the new normal, including, of course, how they integrate security without having to sacrifice speed and customer experience. So Escom has partnered with Cloudflare, a leading web infrastructure and web security company, along with the Singapore Institute of Retail Studies, or SIRS, to lead this webinar and to raise awareness on this pressing issue. And I would like all of you as well to take note of the chat box that's on the right side of your screen. Please do answer the poll questions and do download the brochures that will be published during the sessions of the webinar. Along with that, you may also type and ask the questions there for the Q&A sessions later. So to begin our session, I would like to actually call on Mr. David Lee, the head of the Digital Commerce and International E-commerce Standard Working Committee of SIRS, the Singapore Institute of Retail Studies. He will be discussing the topic on leveraging cybersecurity to deliver a superior online customer experience.
You want me to take over the screen, or you are able to help me with the screen? Okay. Give me a minute. Thank you, Escom, for having me in the Cybersec Asia webinar. Welcome everyone to this webinar, leveraging cybersecurity to deliver a superior online customer experience. Next slide, please. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce myself and my organizations. So I used to work for HP, Dell, and so on. I've been with the digital commerce business for more than 15 years to 20 years. So I've been seeing the growth of the e-commerce, and the last I left the company actually is managing about $3 billion for Asia Pacific regions. These are my qualifications. Qualified with all the different educations, but most important of all is to develop the curriculums. I got a distinction in that, meaning is that I'm able to develop very well structured training programs. And last but not least, it's my expertise. These are my expertise areas. Many is more on the e-commerce, and I'm also sitting in the Enterprise Singapore Standards and Technical Reference Working Committees. Next slide, please. So you can see that this was my participation in last year, November, for the International ISO for e-commerce standards. So you can see that globally, e-commerce has played a significant role in the economy. And last year, actually, all the countries are very excited to drive e-commerce standards for the world. Next slide. And about my organizations, CIRS, Singapore Institute of Retail Studies, we are today the national anchor provider for training and consultancies. We have trained more than 180,000 people. And today we are very proud to say that we are the only strategic digital training partner for all the global digital commerce leaders under one roof. And also we are well supported by the government agencies for all our training programs with subsidies up to 90%. And been working closely with all the digital commerce leaders, we are glad to provide the latest and greatest features or functions on the trainings with all these leaders. Next slide. Right. So COVID-19 has hit many businesses hard, and we see many brands forced to go online to reach out to customers and new consumers who used to visit physical stores. Live streaming, TikTok, Instagram are not only opening up for more brand digital experience, but also cybercrimes Today's cybersecurity is as real in post-COVID-19, affecting the online customer experience. Next slide. Post-COVID-19 not only kept countries locked down for a long period of times, but also can be repeated times. The new norm has forced many to go online for purchases, work, and personal entertainment, as you have seen in the videos. The e-commerce traffic, for example, supermarket, has increased by 251% within 6 weeks in April. E-retailers and e-marketplaces have increased to 78%, thanks to many small businesses and new consumers going online today. The surge indeed will test the robustness of the platforms as well as cybersecurity. Imagine hackers are now full-time stay home to try out new tricks. Cybercrime is on the rise. Digital commerce businesses have to set up more security measures, which may deter not only hackers, but also the customer's experience. So we need to actually strike a balance for that. Next slide. The challenge is, how do we balance the cybersecurity measures and yet deliver superior online customer experience? Let's go back to the good old days basic of commerce transactions. In the physical world, the risk of transaction is minimal, where agreement of purchases, payment, and delivery are done in one single event. The 4 risk factors, relationships, product, location, and timing is within both merchants and customers' control. However, digital commerce has broken the balance of these risk factors. Next slide. Fast forward to today, the challenges are even much bigger. The social media has expanded the relationship between sellers and buyers to the thousands of fan communities, families, children, boyfriends, girlfriends, colleagues, and so on. So much of personal information are carelessly shared. Cyber attacks such as social engineering is the new password for the hackers and traditional criminals going online. Next, we can actually see products when they are bought. It is not the goods alone that are transacted. All kind of information is attached within the transactions, with bookmarking, digital coupons, cookies, EDM confirmations, digital delivery invoice, accounts with password and personal profile, and maybe your 10 years ago photos, which can be easily available in the internet. All this information can be easily leaked during and after the transaction. In particular, the pervasive use of mobile phones, video camera, IoT devices like your wristband, and Wi-Fi access in physical public places like malls and cafes will expose our identity and to cyber crimes. Also, e-commerce is taking up significant share of today's company business vitality. With DDoS, distributor denial of service, the competitors are in fact paying hackers to swarm the e-commerce sites with unwanted traffic and prevent the actual customers from visiting your stores. Last but not least, we may worry about virus attacks and phishing. There's these 24/7 cognitive AI-driven bots, spiders, intelligently claw and cripple your online business. Next slide. For social engineering, the hackers are able to convince the buyer merchants with information collected from social media like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, bloggers, communities to access your system, money, or products. If you look at the pictures below, actually it's a video from the YouTube talking about these mind readers. Before showing everything, the people actually are very amazed that this person is able to tell them about their lives and so on. And finally, he reviewed all this information of their personal life, and their profile is all available in the internet. Mind you, with the social engineering risks not only affect in mass scale, but also targeted groups or even the top guns of the organizations. The damages are all the same. Thus, at this post-COVID-19 times, when there's more new online consumers, e-commerce merchants need to educate and increase the awareness of social engineering risks. Next slide. Many of us hold more than 2 credit cards. These accessory cards may be stolen or lost without our notice for some times. Also, our credit card information may be carelessly leaked in the internet world. What's more, purchasing online will not happen in secure e-commerce sites. It can happen in innocent comments column, feedback sessions, lucky draw prize collections, photo and video sharings, virus sharing, which actually allows the cybercrimes to happen. Companies shall invest time and money to set up PCI DSS standards. It may cost you some money to have the cybersecurity, but these standards are easily available from the payment gateway related solutions providers. So do actually invest in the time and money to set up PCI DSS standard. Next slide, please. Can you imagine if you are driving to a shopping mall today and there's a heavy traffic jam? Time are wasted for the customers in waiting. In the internet world, consumers will move away from the e-commerce site if the traffic is heavy and keep them waiting for more than 5 seconds. The DDoS, this is the cyber attack, is that they will jam the e-commerce sites with fake traffic to slow down your sites to a crawl. And the solution is to deploy DDoS protection service to look out and block the source. It may sound like science fiction, but it is real in the digital world that they can actually block traffic to your stores. Next slide. We are fully aware and block virus attacks, but we allow bot spider actively 24/7 to crawl the internet for ranking purpose and technical support. However, the bots have become intelligent by mutation with cognitive AI capability. For example, 85% of the call centers interactions are handled by the cognitive AI-enabled chatbot. You may easily mistaken that you are talking to a super friendly human agent, much better than any of us. So this is how intelligent are chatbots today. Beware of such intelligent bot spider crawl into your system to disrupt inventory information and pricings, allowing abandoning shopping carts, affecting your sales and revenues. And of course, there is a solution. And the solution is to actively look out for spikes and block the hosting providers and proxy services. Next slide. COVID-19 pandemic has increased international level awareness to vigorously put in place safety measures to reboot the store business and economy recessions. Remember, the hackers have more times during the lockdown period and bigger online consumers populations to exploit in post-COVID-19. Do plan ahead and stay resilient with updated cybersecurity for the new trending of social engineering, transactions, DDoS, and bots. Spiders. Next slide. It is only through planning ahead to stay safe and thrive that we can deliver a superior online customer experience. We shall revamp our business immune system to prevent the rising intelligence cybercrimes driven by cognitive AI, allowing traditional criminals going online as well. I will leave these notes and pass it on to our next speaker. Thank you.
Our opening sessions, we do have Mr. Gaurav Malawat, the Asian Solutions Engineer, team lead of Cloudflare, and he will be discussing the topic on accelerating digital transformation, meeting the growing demands of the modern digital consumer. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Gaurav. I manage the SE team for ASEAN region at Cloudflare. So really excited to be with all of you talking about the challenges of digital transformation. So today I would like to talk about some of the digital trends, especially in this pandemic situation. what are the obstacles and challenges in the digital transformation, and more importantly, how Cloudflare can help you with that digital transformation. So Cloudflare's mission is to help build a better internet. So we are a global cloud platform uh, which helps secure anything which is connected to the internet. So we run a massive network, and our value proposition is to make sure that we're able to secure your internet-facing applications from malicious attacks. And at the same time, we want to be able to deliver those web assets at a high performance to your end users, no matter if they're accessing from any device or anywhere in the world. So we can do this because of this massive network which we operate. So we are present in over 200 locations. So we have multiple data centers running all across the world. Uh, we have 25 million properties on our network. So this gives us immense scale. I mean, at any given time, we are seeing more than 10% of the total internet traffic. Uh, and just to put things in perspective, we are present in all the major ISPs worldwide. Like almost 90+% population, which is connected to the internet, can access Cloudflare within a single hop. And that is one of the reasons why we can provide security and performance at the same time for all the internet-facing applications. So Cloudflare is for everyone. We pretty much have customers from all verticals across different parts of the world. It doesn't matter if it's an e-commerce shop or a SaaS company or maybe a traditional organization. Pretty much all of them are utilizing Cloudflare with their security needs. And you can see some of these logos on the slide. So, uh, so obviously, we are in this pandemic situation where more and more people have moved to internet to basically access different services. Uh, and even before the pandemic, when we are talking to various organizations, both small and large, uh, these are the trends which we see in terms of their digital transformation. So everybody wants to provide a good customer experience. And in order to do that, obviously, they have to increase the speed to the market. So essentially, they need to be agile in terms of delivering the product and bringing the product to the market. Uh, Everybody wants to improve their employee productivity. Uh, Everybody wants more insights into their products and services to better understand how their customers are consuming those products. And depending on the data, then they can make better decisions to serve their customers more effectively. And basically, the organizations wants to make products and services that will enhance the customer experience. And as you can think, any business which relies on internet to deliver these services, it is very critical to have a solid technology stack in order to basically meet these digital transformation goals. So Cloudflare has over 25 million websites on our platform. So we have obviously organizations which are small in nature, like less than 50 people, to customers in Fortune 100 category. But these are some of the common digital transformation challenges which we see. So namely, there are three challenges. The first one is the managing the complexity in the hybrid and multi-cloud environment. So this is less of a challenge for cloud native companies. So for example, if you're talking to like a company which started in last 5 or 10 years, most likely they must have gone to cloud to start with. So they don't face the complexity issues. But if you're talking to a large organization which has been there for years, obviously they have a complex set of infrastructure where they're running things in cloud and things in their own data center. So that really adds complexity. The second one is adapting to the increased agility. So nowadays, adopting the organizations are adopting more DevOps. Sorry, just give me a second. I don't know why these slides are fluctuating. Okay. So nowadays, the organizations are adopting DevOps practices to increase the pace at which they can bring these changes to their infrastructure. So traditional IT organizations, which would rely on like old practices of change management, are no longer viable, if especially if you want to service your customers faster. So again, this is a second challenge, especially for organizations which are still using legacy practices. And finally, the security aspects. So in the last few years, definitely there has been an increase in number of cyber attacks. So the size and the number of attacks has been constantly increasing year after year. So maybe 5 years back, the most of the attacks were smaller in size, but today we see attacks which are more than like 1 terabits per second. And it's really easy to launch a DDoS attack these days, especially because the attackers have access to multiple machines. So it's no longer very costly to run an attack. And as a result of all of that, the organizations obviously see a more threat of cyber attacks. And especially if you're running a multi-cloud environment, then it's really hard to maintain the security aspects. So now that we have talked about some of the challenges, so in a nutshell, it comes down to these three things, in our opinion. So today's internet really requires security, performance, and reliability. So security means basically mitigating your applications from any malicious traffic, so DDoS attacks or data breaches or phishing attacks. So basically, the organization want to make sure that their applications are secure. And at the same time, in order to provide a better customer experience, you need to make sure your web applications are well performing. So basically, you want to accelerate your internet applications in order to serve your customers in a better way. And finally, reliability is very, very important. Uh, you want to provide security and performance, but at the same time, you want to make sure that all of your applications are available 100% of the time. I mean, these days, even if you have like a 5-minute outage, the company name will be trending on Twitter. So there's very high visibility and high expectations from the customers. So reliability is also something which the organizations have to be aware of. So these are this is how we view today's internet requirements. Now let's take a step back. Let's talk about how the security was delivered in the old days. So before this whole cloud transformation started, uh, companies were running storage and compute in their own data centers, and that required them to basically buy firewalls, load balancers, VPNs in order to secure their data centers. Now, this old way of doing things has obviously a lot of challenges. So first of all, it is very expensive to buy those boxes. So there is usually a upfront capex cost if you want to secure your network using hardware boxes. Secondly, they're not easy to use. Um, it's not that you buy those boxes and they're ready to use. You first have to procure those boxes. You have to configure them. So it actually defeats the whole point of having the agility. You cannot really have agility if you're using like boxes to secure your network. And there are inconsistencies, right? So let's say if you're running multiple data centers, then you need to make sure the security policies on all of these devices are in the same fashion. So you may run into a situation where you have these inconsistent policies depending on how you are handling the configuration of those boxes. And finally, the most troublesome part is you require a human to configure and maintain these boxes. So anytime you want to update or patch one of these softwares on those running on those hardwares, you really need an intervention from a human. You cannot just sit on your laptop and do it virtually. So because of all those challenges, obviously people are moving towards cloud. So in past decade, storage and compute and applications have moved to cloud, and we think now it's time to move your network and application security to cloud as well, and that's all Cloudflare is about. So if you just do a survey of today's IT leaders, I mean over 75% of them will say that they're using at least one cloud provider. So because of obviously the challenges of like the hardware solutions, obviously companies are moving more and more towards cloud. So typically, like any large scale organization will have a mix of like on-premise data centers, and they may be present in one or multiple clouds. Now, the challenge is you can serve your applications from an hybrid environment. So on any given application, it is possible to break your application stack to be delivered from an hybrid infrastructure. But when it comes to security, you can't really put boxes in a cloud provider, right? So you cannot really deliver security in a hybrid environment by putting boxes. So you really need a cloud-based solution to deliver the security. And the other thing to note down is if you're managing, let's say, 3 or 4 environments, that means if you were to do it the old way, you'll have to deploy the security controls in 4 places separately, and you'll have to maintain it separately. And it will be a nightmare situation to make sure all those policies are in sync. So because of these challenges, what we think is you really need a cloud-based security platform which can cater to all the security in a single pane of glass. And that's all Cloudflare is about. So with the help of these 200 data centers, we can sit in between the end user traffic and your infrastructure. So we will take care of all these network and application security. So our goal is essentially to provide network and application security as a service. So you don't really need to buy any boxes. You can just provision the service in the cloud, and Cloudflare can route the traffic to your infrastructure. So if you want Cloudflare to load balance between your on-premise and public cloud, or if you want Cloudflare to send all the traffic for a specific application to a specific cloud provider, I mean, those kind of flexibility and is offered on Cloudflare platform, and we can easily manage that with the help of our cloud platform. So really speaking, this is how we think of our solutions. So obviously, we are a massive platform, so we run various services as part of our platform. So we have like 3 buckets of products. The first one is Cloudflare for infrastructure. So this is really to provide security and performance for your infrastructure. So basically mitigation of DDoS attacks or mitigation of application layer vulnerabilities, rate limiting. These are some of the things which we do on the security side. And on the performance side, we deliver your assets from cache. We will optimize your content. We will reduce the network latency with the help of our network. So basically, all of those optimizations are geared to improve the performance of your web assets. Then we have a second category of products called Cloudflare for Teams. So Access is our zero trust solution. So if you have any applications which today you use VPN for, you can easily replace your VPN using Cloudflare Access. So especially in this pandemic situation, as more and more people are working remotely, uh, organizations need a way to provide a secure access to their applications, not just from like their offices, but from anywhere. And with the help of Cloudflare Access, you can provide that secure access to your applications, no matter what device or which network the employee is accessing that application from. We also have something called Gateway, which is to basically secure the access to the internet. So every organization needs to put certain controls in place when their employees access the internet. And our Gateway can help you control the access to the internet and enforce the policies with a cloud-based solution. So the beauty of both Access and Gateway is, again, these are also completely cloud-based solutions. So you don't really need to purchase any hardware and deploy it in your offices. Everything can be done in the cloud instantly. And finally, we are also providing a serverless platform. So we feel there are enough cases where edge computing is required. So especially if you are a company which is looking into providing like Internet of Things, uh, or using IoT to deliver services to your customers. Uh, Definitely, you cannot. There are physical limitations of the compute power on those devices. So we feel because of the 200 data centers we have, we can do the computing for those IoT devices on Cloudflare, and not just the IoT devices. Any critical part of your application, which can be which is latency sensitive, can be deployed on our serverless platform. So really speaking, Cloudflare is obviously a massive platform, and these are all the different things which we do. And our goal is to essentially provide a secure and best performing access to all of your internet applications. So let's talk about some of the trends, especially after this whole pandemic situation. Uh, so, so, so basically, this is the map of the internet activity in March and April. So anywhere where you see green boxes, so basically that represents an increase in the internet activity in that region, and anywhere which represents red is basically reduced activity for that region. So as you can see, I mean, overall, since the pandemic started and more people are accessing internet uh, to basically do their day-to-day activities, and Cloudflare has seen anywhere from 20 to 40% increase in the total internet traffic on our network. So something which would need like a year or two in normal days, we have seen that growth in just matter of months because of this pandemic situation. So as expected, like certain categories of websites have more traffic. So obviously more and more people are home. So you can expect increase in like entertainment, gaming, kids-related websites. So we have seen a massive increase with respect to that. But at the same time, obviously there's a decline when it comes to like sporting event websites or travel sites. So obviously there are no sporting events being conducted. So that is expected. But the net result is still 20 to 40% increase in the total traffic which is served on Cloudflare. And at the same time, we also saw a huge uptake in the number of cyber attacks. So definitely, these criminals have more incentive to attack now that most of the people are accessing internet more. And you can argue, obviously, they are also part of the same society, so even they must be in some sort of lockdown, so they have more time to do some of these activities. But the net result is we have seen up to 100% increase in number of cyber attacks on Cloudflare platform in April. And these attacks, obviously, there are various types of attacks which we see on our network. So on the left, you can see anywhere from 50 to like 300% increase in the attack types. But at the same time, we also saw some of the attacks which were not that prevalent. For example, we didn't really see many attacks from like fake Google bots and Bing bots. But overall, we did see a huge uplift in number of cyber attacks on Cloudflare. Now, oftentimes when you talk to organizations, especially the small and medium organizations, the general perception is we are not big enough to be targeted. But that's not actually true. When we looked at a survey of different companies, pretty much half of the companies are vulnerable to some sort of cyber attacks. So even the small companies which are like less than 50 people, like 47% of those companies were targeted with some sort of cyber attack. And if you look at like large organizations, obviously like 3 out of 4 organizations have seen a cyber attack. So it's not that only Fortune 500 or only large customers are attacked. The cyber criminals have incentive to attack the smaller organizations as well. And on an average, a cyber incident will cost about 400K and 369K to be more precise. So definitely everybody is at a risk of getting a cyber attack. And if you do get cyber attack, there are significant costs involved in the mitigation of that cyber incident as well. So there are different types of cyber attacks. Obviously the most common ones are like the DDoS attacks, which Cloudflare sees on a regular basis. So we see like thousands of attacks every day. So usually the goal of DDoS attack is to take down your website so that your legitimate users cannot access your applications. The other common attack is credential stuffing. So obviously, because of the various data breaches, usernames and passwords are exposed on the dark web. So what these hackers will do is they will use the stolen usernames and passwords and basically try the same username and password on different websites with the help of bots. So essentially, they will run a bot which will just like scrape different websites with those username and passwords. So as you like, some of the people use the same password across websites, so they may get lucky, and it will further result in more compromised accounts. We also see like phishing attacks. So especially in the COVID situation, I'm sure like most of you must have received some sort of phishing email, which basically, so they basically exploit the pandemic situation, and they will deceive the user into revealing some sort of personal information, which they can later use for their financial gain. And finally, there are ransomware attacks where an attacker will deploy a malicious piece of code or script on the victim's machine, and thereby taking the control of the machine. So these are the different types of cyber attacks or threats which we typically see today. So Cloudflare's security services are geared to mitigate these cyber threats. So mainly we look at all the DDoS attacks. So there are various ways of launching a DDoS attack. And the largest attack the internet has seen was about 1.6 terabits per second. So one of the key things in mitigating DDoS attack is to have a network capacity. Because we are running a network of 200 data centers, which has a capacity of more than 40 terabits per second, we can confidently mitigate all these DDoS attacks. So as we mentioned, we have like more than 25 million customers on our network. That gives us a really good visibility into all the attacks which are happening on the internet. And as a result of that intelligence and scale of our network, we can protect your applications from any sort of DDoS attack. At the same time, we also provide a web application firewall to protect against any application layer vulnerabilities. So obviously, your developers want to uh, develop the applications which are which don't have any vulnerability, but in the real world, uh, obviously there are many vulnerabilities which are out there. Sometimes you have these zero-day vulnerabilities because of the technology or platform you're using. So using Cloudflare Web, you can patch your applications against those vulnerabilities. So anytime there's a new vulnerability, Cloudflare will basically announce a new WAF rule which will mitigate against that vulnerability. And thirdly, there are attacks from bots. So obviously, there are both good bots and bad bots. As you do want to cater to good bots like the search engine crawlers, for example, but at the same time, you want to mitigate and stop the bad bots. So almost 60% of the internet traffic comes from bot, and large percentage of that bot traffic is malicious. So with the help of Cloudflare bot mitigation, you can block all those bad bots on Cloudflare itself, thereby protecting your origin from catering to those malicious users. So these are some of the things which we do to mitigate the malicious traffic. Uh, we also have like Cloudflare and Cloudflare Access and Gateway, which is more to secure your applications and your users. So if you want to provide a secure access to the internet, and if you want to make sure your applications are accessible by legitimate users only, you can use Cloudflare Access and Gateway to deliver that experience. And Cloudflare is proud to provide free SSL certificates. So we make the entire connection encrypted with the help of certificates which we offer. So oftentimes, one of the challenges on the internet is these certificates have a cost, and that can be a blocker for somebody to not use encryption. But back in 2014, Cloudflare decided to just give certificates free through our partnership with different CAs. And as a result of that, we can just provide additional security for all of your internet traffic. And we also have something called Magic Transit. So especially if you are an organization which is running a data center, Cloudflare can protect your entire IP ranges in that data center. So essentially, we can advertise your IP ranges from our data centers. So all the traffic destined on that IP range will go through Cloudflare. Thereby, your data center will be protected from DDoS attacks. So that's all we do on the security front. Now let me touch on the performance aspects. So obviously, speed is important, but then the question is, how fast is fast enough? So based on a study done by Google, if your website takes more than 3 seconds, then 53% of the users will just abandon the website. So basically, the goal of an organization should be to load their web pages and web assets under 3 seconds. Now, why does the performance matter? So obviously, one is to convert your website visitors into customers. Obviously, the faster the website loads, the more is the conversion rate. But the two other aspects are the user experience and the SEO rankings. So obviously, you want to provide the best possible user experience to your customers. And this can be a differentiating factor from your competitors. So obviously, you need to make sure your websites or your web applications are functioning optimally. And finally, as you're aware, Google and the other search engine crawlers will rank your website higher if they are performing better. If there is any slowness on your website, that will indirectly hamper the SEO ranking. And obviously, the lower the SEO ranking, obviously it will impact your business and revenue as well. So all in all, I mean, performance matters, and definitely organizations, especially the e-commerce organizations, they have to spend effort in order to make sure their websites and applications are performing optimally. Now, improving web performance is not a rocket science. Uh, so mainly it comprises of like three areas, or so basically you have like the client, which is like accessing your website. So there are a set of optimizations you can do on the client side. Then you have network in between your client and your infrastructure. So the goal is to basically minimize the network latency and the congestion. And on the server side, you want to make sure that you have enough resources to basically respond to that customer request fast enough. So that these are like the three key areas in order to improve the performance of your website. So on the client side, it mostly depends on browsers. So today's modern browsers, they all support like the latest protocols. For example, HTTP2, HTTP3, TLS 1.3, like compression algorithms like Broadly. So basically, your browsers will support all the latest and greatest. So as long as you are delivering the content which is in the right format, which is compressed, then you can actually you can optimize the content on the client side and make sure the website loads fast enough. Then on the network side, so as you know, the internet is not designed for performance. Uh, the internet majorly works on these ISP relationships with each other. So depending on uh, how two ISPs talk to each other and what sort of peering agreements they have, that will actually decide how your packet flows from like one location to other location. So usually, in order to work around the network congestion and the network latency issues which are inherent in the internet, you can deploy a CDN like Cloudflare. So as I was talking, we have like over 200 data centers in all the major ISPs. So with the help of CDN, you can serve the static content from the CDN cache, and B, with the help of someone like Cloudflare, because we have a better connected networks and we also run a backbone network. We can work around these network congestion and network latency issues and get the packet faster from the origin. And finally, on the server side, you want to make sure your workloads are distributed across different environments. So one of the things which you can do is you can leverage serverless computing. So something like Cloudflare Workers, which is our serverless platform. So any workloads which you feel can be run on at the edge, then you can just have Cloudflare run those workloads on behalf of your server. So A, that will improve the performance, and B, it will reduce the load on your servers. So your servers can obviously cater to more number of users. And also during the uh, flash sales, oftentimes you suddenly see uh, a massive uptick in the number of customers visiting the website. So having some sort of queuing system will help, where you can serve the users, but let's say if your server is busy, then you can put the customers in some sort of queue instead of just denying the request. So Cloudflare has a solution which we call waiting room. So essentially, the goal is to basically prioritize users. And if the server is like busy, then we can put the user in a waiting room. So all in all, like the client side, server side, and the network level optimizations will essentially improve your performance of your website. The other thing which you need to take into account while looking at performance is to look at the changes in today's infrastructure. Lately, there has been this increased use of microservices where you are developing these microservices and calling these microservices via an API to deliver the content to the end user. So unlike in the past where everything was like managed from the same data center or same server, nowadays there is more and more reliance on like self-hosted APIs and also like third-party services which are accessed through these APIs. So that presents a challenge because you can obviously optimize what you have on your end, but in order to like optimize the third-party APIs, so that's a challenge, and this is something Cloudflare can help with, which I'll mention in a moment. So traditionally, when people say CDN, it used to mean caching only, but obviously times have changed. So there are inefficiencies with like a legacy CDN. Because they're just doing caching and they're not really providing some of these other optimization which I touched upon. The second is it also matters how fast the changes are propagated to the network. So the responsiveness of the CDN is also important in terms of the change management. So obviously there are legacy CDNs where it will take like 30 minutes for you to deploy a change. So especially if you're an organization which wants to cater to your customers and be able to deploy those changes in a real time, it will actually have a negative effect on the ROI. So that's something which is obviously problematic with the current CDN. The other thing is the agility. So as I mentioned, now there's a focus on doing things the DevOps way and more in an automated fashion. So obviously you need a platform where you can deploy the changes with the help of APIs and where the changes are like reflected in matter of seconds, not like 30 minutes. So obviously you need to have a CDN or a platform which can support these things. And finally, security is obviously it goes hand in hand with performance. So you want your CDN provider to basically provide like security and also the compliance. So especially in APAC, like there are various like the different countries have different set of compliances. So you want to make sure that the CDN is able to comply with the local laws and local regulations. So these are some of the challenges of like web performance, especially if you're using a legacy CDN. So Cloudflare is obviously a modern cloud-based CDN. So we can cater to some of these challenges because of our integrated stack. So one of the benefits of Cloudflare is all 200 data centers run all of Cloudflare services. So unlike some of the other vendors where they run CDN on one data center and security on another data center, we run everything everywhere. And because of our technology stack, we can provide all of these services without really adding any latency. In fact, if you use Cloudflare Security and CDN, we will end up improving your performance. And also, Cloudflare is API first, so everything on Cloudflare is accessible via an API. So especially if you're an organization which is DevOps friendly, then you will really find it easy to manage and configure Cloudflare. The second thing is the simplicity. So we obviously want to help our customers to onboard on our platform quickly. So we have made it really simple to onboard on Cloudflare. Most of our customers can onboard their website on Cloudflare in less than 1 hour. So oftentimes we have these situations where somebody is under attack. So Cloudflare can just onboard them in matter of 1 hour. So that's really amazing, especially if you compare to some of the legacy CDNs. And finally, we are running an intelligent platform. So as I mentioned, we are not just doing caching, but we are also doing these other protocol level optimizations and network level optimizations on top of caching. Uh, and so one of the proprietary things which we do is because we run a backbone network and we are all of our data centers are well connected, we can find a better route to your origin through Cloudflare network. So as I mentioned, the traditional route on the internet, they're not best performing because they're largely governed by how the ISPs talk to each other. But Cloudflare can work around uh, those network congestion and latency issues, and we can identify the best route to your origin. So all in all, we are providing an intelligent platform which can cater to your performance needs. Yeah. So as I mentioned, like again, caching is not a rocket science. Like pretty much everybody, like all the CDNs do that. But one thing where we are different is we the scale of our network. We have 200 pops. So we are running one of the largest CDN, and because of these pops, like we are present within 100 milliseconds for 99% of the internet connected population. So this is something which is unique to Cloudflare. And obviously, we deploy the latest hardware in all of our data centers. So we want to basically use the latest and greatest hardware to make sure we are able to like serve this cached content fast enough. And as I mentioned, we just don't do caching, but we will optimize your content as well. So things like converting your image to like a WebP format, which is which supports a greater compression ratio, parallel streaming of progressive content. So we do this variety of different things, and in fact, Cloudflare supports all the modern protocols. So things like HTTP2, TLS1, we were the first CDN to basically provide platform-wide support. So with the help of these protocols, we can deliver the content faster. And finally, I talked about our serverless platform called Cloudflare Workers, which really provides the flexibility. So you can run any sort of business logic which is critical to your application on Cloudflare, thereby improving the performance of your website. And finally, as I mentioned, we find the best route to your origin with the help of the technology called Argo because of our interconnected network. So yeah, so I think we're almost out of time. So thanks everyone. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat, or you can reach out to me at via LinkedIn or at my email address. So thanks everybody, and have a good day.
Hi, Gaurav. Yes, you actually did have two questions from the audience, actually. One is from Andrew, who was asking, how does Cloudflare protect all the services that they offer to the customers, and how fast Cloudflare can mitigate any compromised service provided in an unfortunate event?
Yeah, so actually our network is always on. That means we are continuously monitoring and blocking the malicious packets. So to answer your question, we mitigate in real time. So unlike some of the legacy vendors where you have to send traffic to their scrubbing center, there's no delay in terms of mitigation. Like our solution is always on.
Oh, that's great. And Jed also asked, with the increase in internet traffic to our site, we also see an increasing number of planned attacks. What advice do you have for them to step up on protecting the web applications and data against malicious attacks, and how soon we can get started on that?
Yeah, so in order to protect your applications from these attacks, I think you need to have like a DDoS vendor like Cloudflare. So when you put somebody in front of your infrastructure, so obviously Cloudflare or the DDoS vendor can absorb all those DDoS attacks. The second thing you need to do is you need to have a web application firewall in order to protect from application layer vulnerabilities. So again, you can use like Cloudflare WAF in order to protect your applications. And finally, you can deploy IP layer blocking rules. So for example, any countries where you don't have legitimate users, you can simply block those countries if you see malicious traffic from them. And also you can rate limit. So you can only allow a certain number of requests from a given IP address. So if somebody sends more requests, then you can just rate limit that user. So again, there are like many things you can do. Like security is not just like one click of a button. So Cloudflare has these different tools to protect from layer 3 to layer 7. And to answer your question, how soon you can get started? So as I mentioned, we can pretty much onboard your website in a matter of 1 hour. Because we provide like managed WAF, you don't really have to configure anything. Once you are on Cloudflare, we will like mitigate all those DDoS attacks and web vulnerabilities. So yeah, if you're interested, then we can chat more after this.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for that very informative presentation. And yes, for all those companies going through a digital transformation during this pandemic, of course, it's great how the services of Cloudflare can tackle on that and help accelerate the process, especially in terms of security integrations and performance. And yes, next on tap is our much awaited panel discussion. I know you're all as excited as I am, so let's keep it rolling. And yes, I will call again on David, who will be our moderator for this session and help us proceed.
I'm back again. Hope you are still staying with us. We have very exciting panelists with us. We shall begin the discussion with the panelists, and we will reserve the last sessions to the questions from the audience. Today, we are glad to have experts here today from Beauty Manila, PG Mall, Cloudflare, and also Bukalabat. Let's put our hands together to welcome them. So today we are split into two sessions. We are discussing two key areas from the customer's experience and also from the cybersecurity aspects in the post-COVID-19. So the first sessions will be with Charles and also with Sophie.
Hello, David. Good afternoon.
Hi, Charles. Good to see you. Yeah. Let's wait for Sophie. Is Sophie on the line? Hi, Sophie. Okay. So before we begin, let's take a few minutes to introduce yourself, role, and what does your company do. Let's begin with Sophie and then followed by Charles.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie Sullivan, and I'm the operations manager of Beauty MNL. So I've been part of this industry for over 6 years. And when I was given to lead the operations team around 3 to 4 years ago, I was able to grow the team from 14 people to currently 215. So I've seen it all. I've seen how you grow something from scratch.
What a big team.
Yeah. So there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Charles, what about yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charles Lim. I'm MIS Director and Advisor for PG Group of Companies. Currently, in our group of companies, we have many associate companies. Among them, one of the key companies is PG Mall. Okay, PG Mall is an online platform. It's the #1 online platform in Malaysia. So the current, we have a staff strength of 250 throughout Malaysia for the entire PG group. So the PG group is one of the pioneer in e-commerce in Malaysia. So we are among the most successful in terms of gold trading and so on. Recently, about 3 years ago, we moved into PG Mall, and now PG Mall is the #1 platform in Malaysia. So personally, myself, I have 35 years of software engineering background. Wow. And I've been working with IT companies and a lot of small and medium companies in Malaysia.
Wow, sounds like you're a rocket scientist.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So ask you tough questions. From the perspective of corporate risk management, right? Because you're managing not only the mall itself, but also the whole groups. From the corporate risk management, how has the e-commerce played the role of affecting your overall business? Whether it's going to be a big piece of the business, and your IT management, basically, is it going to take up more of your times?
Okay, e-commerce have grown in quite a fair bit recent years, especially with this current COVID scenario. The amount of activity has shot up. According to eMarketer, in 2020, the whole world retail e-commerce is going to strike 4 trillion, going to surpass 4 trillion this year. So by next year, it's going to see close to 5 trillion. So this is a big change in the business world. So it forces a corporate to open up into new sales channel. It's quite fortunate that we embarked on that 12 years ago in our PG group. So now we are in the forefront of e-commerce. Now, this e-commerce is actually, it opens up the playing field into a much bigger playing field. If you are conventional retail, you're confined to the physical store.
Yep.
So if you imagine the market now, the market size of e-commerce is going to hit 4 trillion worldwide in the whole world. So you can imagine where the money is, where the thieves are.
Yep.
So if you have a small store, your turnover may likely be a few million a year. So then you will have small thieves coming after you. But then if you open up your store to the world, you're going to have tons of thieves after you. So this changes the scenario. So the risk is now so much more when you go expose yourself onto the net.
Yeah.
So now risk management has to change in the corporate. It used to be a back-end process whereby the risks are much more confined to the back office and so on. So the front-end side is quite limited to your retail store. But then now the risk management is moved forward to the front end. So you have to consider risk management upfront before everything else. Now, the biggest impact is to the corporation. The number one impact is actually to the HR. So the employees that you employ, both in terms of IT, you got to have a lot of in-house IT staff that are well versed with risk management and also the security part. So there's a big change in HR, and even the operation side, not just IT side, the operation side, the people who you employ got to have this kind of knowledge and skill set to deal with this kind of risk. So then the second part, the second most important part that impact your business will be the operation side. So your operation is going to have, you got to put in place a lot more new operating procedures. So you have to standardize them. Otherwise, you will face a lot of difficulty, especially when you grow in size. So if you can't standardize your operation in a way, then you're gonna have a very chaotic scenario, especially when you have tons of traffic, tons of transaction on your website. Now, this operation changes, like for example, you're gonna be able to deal with criminal losses, okay, on the spot. So these are like credit card fraud, identity theft, this sort of thing, and you're gonna deal with data security. Okay, what kind of data can you share out? What kind of data you cannot share out? What kind of data you need to protect, and so on. So this takes a lot of operation changes. Another one is the logistics side. So internet e-commerce, you have to deal greatly with logistic companies.
Yep.
So there's a lot of operation changes there. We used to sell retail, you don't have logistic issues. Your logistic is mostly incoming, not outgoing. So now you have the entire the outgoing side of the logistic become your burden. So the operation side. So there's a lot of loss and damage there as well. So that you're going to take care of in terms of SOP. Now, another part is quite small, is the international trade, whereby you have to look at forex changes and so on. Now, the third thing that impact your in terms of risk is that in terms of the marketing and sales sides, especially the PR side, you say this is quite huge also because of the advent of social media and all this TikTok and so on.
Yeah, that's right.
Things get out of hand very rapidly. It can be on the good side, it can be on the bad side. So on the good side, your whole sales and marketing strategy, you have to leverage on all these changes in social media. Now the bad side is the threat side, with the risk management side. So when all this get out of hand, how are you going to handle it? So you're going to have expertise in this sort of area, how to put out the fire and so on. So this is a huge risk in the internet e-commerce business. You can see a brand going down just overnight. This has become a huge risk by itself. So the PR department is definitely have to be beefed up. Okay, I think those are some of the key areas that you have to look at. Another side is that you have to look at the risk of losing your customers and the spread of negative news, all this. So you just have to put in place the proper PR staff and PR procedures.
Okay. Sounds like you have a lot of heavy responsibility.
That's all. So when you have millions of customers online in your website, there's a huge load.
Right. Okay. So let's shift the questions to Sophie. So you have mentioned you have been running operations on a successful e-commerce platform from a team of 14 to 215 people. I'm very curious, right? How does it sound like for a day in your life? Where do you begin with so many things to do?
Okay, I think it's more of like balancing the entire ecosystem of operations. It's not only like zooming in on like the inbound team, the outbound team. It's really holistically, you have to look at everything. So I think it's not just about balancing. It's more that technology enables us to operate more efficiently. And as a result, we get to deliver better customer service. So we receive thousands of orders each day, and without automation or technology, we won't be able to consistently give our customers that excellent customer service. So we've done like numerous customer service surveys, and consistently what's on top is speed of delivery. And we're able to do it not just because we operate almost 24/7, but it's really the systems and the processes that we've set up that helps us deliver orders really quickly. So as mentioned a while ago, it's not just about improving one aspect. For example, it's not just about picking and packing, but also it's about looking at the entire ecosystem from inbounding the goods all the way down to delivery. So for example, what we do here in Beauty MNL is when we receive the goods, we track every single manufacturing date, expiry date, so that it's logged on our site. But it's also when we do store our items or display our items in the inventory area, we think about where to place those specifically, because it will affect the next team who does picking and packing. So the whole scenario is, or the whole idea is, we place faster moving items near to the packing area and the slower moving ones farther to the packing area, so that we don't just put things randomly. We are able to process faster since the staff members don't have to move so much around. Aside from this, it's the system who instructs us if we have to place it in the cold storage or whatnot. So overall, what we did was we made it easier and faster for all the processes downstream, so that, and since we fix all the upstream processes, we have more leeway to expedite and deliver orders even on the same day. So that, And I think another example would be that could possibly change the customer perception about your brand is getting like wrong information, or customers getting like fake links or redirects. And most often than not, customers confuse dev or technical issues versus like data breaches. Usually customers automatically assume that it's like a data breach.
Yep.
So you, as a brand, you have to manage us and be careful about the credibility and the reliability of the brand. So this just goes to show how important it is to look at operations holistically and how technology really plays a role in delivering excellent customer service.
Right, very good insights. So before we move on to the other two panelists, there are two questions for two of you, right? For Charles, someone from the name of Cheyo, he said, we have a data center in Jakarta, and we are planning to add more in near futures. So the question is, how do you actually, how does companies create a frictionless shopping experience for your consumers?
Frictionless is a very challenging word.
Yep.
Okay, in terms of e-commerce. Now, just now, I believe the previous presenter did mention that Google survey says that 3 seconds and your website doesn't respond, you're out of here. So now that becomes an issue if you do not have a proper infrastructure in place. So the infrastructure is very important. Now, this infrastructure, not only that it has to have the ability to serve the loads that you are going to put onto your website. These loads, it may come from your customer. It may also come from unforeseen places, like if it is a DDoS attack, it's going to come from unforeseen places. So all these loads that loads onto your infrastructure, you got to think of it, how this infrastructure is going to deal with all these loads and threats that comes onto your infrastructure. So this infrastructure, usually we build in terms of layers of infrastructure. So the outer layer is the outmost protective wall, and then we work inwards and how much protection you want to put. Now, the more protection you put, the more response is going to slow down because of the protection. So there's a leverage between two. You have to balance between two, the amount of protection that you put in and the speed, the decrease in responsiveness that you're going to trade off for that protection. So a good infrastructure will have a very good balance of that. You have a sufficient quality of protection, and then you have a very good performance response and also reliability there. So in terms of reliability, you got to be up 99.99% of the time if you are going to go for almost perfectness.
Yep.
Even at PGBO, we can't achieve that. We achieve close to 99.9 something, 95, 96. Okay, once in a while you will get a hiccup here and there that throws you off. But that is quite good enough. I mean, if you can achieve 99.9%, I think it will be as smooth as you want it to be.
Right.
So all this, you got to work on your infrastructure. How are the connectivity between different parts of your network and servers and so on? Now, all these are very important.
Thank you for your insights. So there's a question for Sophie. The question is, how is pandemic changing retail consumer behaviors, and how are you adjusting? I guess the question comes from maybe Matthew, the one who posed the question is, for example, your platform is selling beauty, cosmetics, and so on, right? Do you see certain rise of cosmetics sales like the eyewear and so on, but the lipsticks and so on actually is lower because nowadays most of the people, they don't actually go outside, they put on masks.
Correct.
So I think the question is, how is pandemic changing retail consumer behaviors, not only in the stores, online, and also the way of using the cosmetic products?
Thank you for that question, David and Mateo. Actually, you're correct. So we see like a huge increase in terms of like our categories in like self-care and skincare, and there are some categories that are waning, like what you mentioned in lipstick. But overall, in terms of like the offline and the online space, we see like a huge shift from offline to online, which means that across all of the taxons, we see like an increase. Yeah, so I think aside from the change in consumer behavior in what to purchase, they also expect like a huge emphasis on safety. So even like in terms of delivery, we make sure we do contactless delivery. Some customers are wary and concerned, so we make sure we follow protocol. But it's not just limited to like the last mile delivery. Even at our own warehouse facility, we incorporate safety measures. We have like the usual thermometers. We make sure that everything's like there's equally space for each person. We do swab testing. We actually also hire shuttles for our staff members so that it's safe. So it's like emphasis on safety and making sure that the customers still get their packages on time. So even if there's like lockdowns across like the Philippines, in terms of customer expectations, they still want to get their order the next day. So despite everything, we need to be able to maintain that standard still. So thankfully, our processes and our systems are capable of handling that increase in demand.
All right, right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you, Sophie and Charles, for your insights. I'd like to move on to the two other panelists, right, to talk about the cybersecurity aspects. So we shall invite James and also Ishan.
Hello, David.
Hi, Ishan. And James, welcome.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Thank you.
So before we begin, so introduce yourself. Begin with James and followed by Ishan.
Yeah, my name's James Ball. I'm the head of solutions engineering for APAC for Cloudflare. So the solutions engineering team at Cloudflare is the team that helps our customers adopt our services.
All right. And your company, what does your company do?
Oh, Cloudflare, sorry, Cloudflare. We provide security and performance services online. So services such as web application firewall, content delivery network, DDoS mitigation, bot mitigation.
Okay. Right. Ishan, about yourself and your company.
Hey, yes. So my name is Iksan. Currently, I'm working as a head of program management in infrastructure in Bukalapak. So the company that I'm working for is a large e-commerce in Indonesia, and then recently we have successfully migrated all of our microservices, which is about 600 of them, all into the cloud. So
wow,
yeah.
Sounds like it's a very complicated job.
Yeah, yeah,
right.
It is.
Okay, I'd like to begin the questions for James. So James, in my earliest sharings, right, I've talked about cybersecurity concerning affecting customers' superior online experience, which can be affected by social engineering, transaction fraud, disputed denial of service, bots, servicing. So my question to you is that can you share and give examples as your company, Cloudflare, helps in secure and supercharged online business?
Yeah, I can. I can actually talk about a specific customer a little bit as well. So we've recently done a customer case study with a company called Glossier. Very similar to Beauty M&L. They sell skincare and beauty products online. But what's really interesting about Glossier is it's almost like they're a technology company first and an e-commerce vendor second. So they're always at the forefront of technology. So they're heavily invested in serverless architecture. So for anybody who doesn't know what serverless is, it's exactly as it sounds. It's the ability for developers to deploy code into a platform, much beyond containerization and virtual machines. There is no need to be a server, an operating system. It isn't managed at all. The developer simply deploys code into a platform and it's available all over the world to perform your business logic. So Glossier are heavily invested in serverless frameworks, and Cloudflare serverless framework, Cloudflare Workers, is one that they leverage to make routing decisions on traffic. How do we route these very important customers? How do we route customers from specific geos to our backend platform? And you know, they really live and breathe technology. But it was interesting actually just following the polls that obviously what's top of mind from the audience is performance and reliability and having a robust security and DDoS protection in place. And that's exactly why Glossier came to us. You know, I think one of the problems is for online businesses is historically you've had to really choose to compromise between, do I have my applications lightning fast but less secure, or do I have them extremely secure and then this negatively impacts user experience? Well, Cloudflare enables the best of both worlds, and this is why Glossier came to us. So yes, we keep their applications very, very performant, but more importantly, we provide very good security. And they had a particular problem with credential stuffing attacks. So as Gaurav covered in his presentation, when there's a data breach, you know, what the attackers are trying to do is get all of those usernames and passwords, because unfortunately, many others choose to use the same usernames and passwords on multiple websites. So they look for a vulnerable website, a weaker website. Once they've got your username and password, then they'll then try to log into, you know, your social media accounts and your e-commerce accounts. Maybe they're trying to get hold of your credit card details, for example. And Glossier saw a huge uptick in credential stuffing attacks against their website, and rate limiting can help to a certain extent. So rate limits is, you know, the traditional approach. If you see single IP addresses trying to repeatedly log into your site, then you can slow the rate of that down, or you can choose to block those IP addresses. But if you think of an example, you know, unfortunately, the cloud is also enabling the bad guys. You know, it's very easy for an attacker to spin up thousands of machines around the world. So imagine an attacker has, let's be very conservative, says they have 2,000 machines under their control, and they send one login request per minute. Over an hour, that's 120,000 usernames and passwords they can try against your website. You know, some of these data breaches, we hear about 2 or 3 million passwords. So in 24 to 48 hours, they could iterate through the entire password list. So rate limiting is obviously not enough. So Glossier's came to us specifically for bot management. So bot mitigation, where we're using machine learning and heuristics of the traffic, of all of the traffic across all of Cloudflare's 25 million customers, to make real-time decisions whether this is a real user trying to log into your website or whether this is a bot.
Sounds like a Robocop.
Yes, yes, that's it. We should perhaps call it that. It's probably trademarked though, but yes, exactly.
Okay, so what are the tips and pointers our audience can take away when considering enhancing a cybersecurity posture for an e-commerce business? Because basically, Cloudflare is providing cloud services. Compared to a lot of people, their mindset for traditional business is that to put in place firewall and put more hardwares in and so on. What kind of tips and pointers can you actually give the audience who are still deploying the traditional way of a legacy system?
Okay, so one great thing about Cloudflare is we're back-end infrastructure agnostic. So our platform's 100% deployed in the cloud, but it doesn't mean that our customers need to have platforms deployed into the cloud. You know, so you know, we protect many customers on-premise, traditional on-premise data centers. But one thing that we do see is that, you know, all customers have a cloud strategy. They, you know, maybe they'll only move some you know, marketing websites into the cloud in the short term before they become confident and they move more of their business over to the cloud. But you know, in reality, nobody does a forklift upgrade and says, I'm going to move my entire data center to the cloud tomorrow. So the nice thing about our platform is we allow that gradual migration of traffic from on-prem to cloud, or we fully support a hybrid environment. Now, one of the problems with hybrid environments is, you know, your team might have a skill set to manage your on-premise firewall and your appliance-based web application firewall and your DDoS mitigation appliances. But then when you move to one of the hyperscalers or another cloud platform, they have different tools, different configuration, different feature sets, and you end up having to have experts on both the on-premise infrastructure. Now you need experts in cloud provider A, and then if you're thinking multi-cloud and you've added a second cloud provider, the nice thing about a platform, Cloudflare's platform, is that we can be that one security policy in a central location, implemented across all of your back-end infrastructure stack.
All right.
So we make it much simpler and easier for businesses to remain secure and migrate into the cloud. Now, if I think about what's top of mind for online businesses, absolutely DDoS mitigation, still a huge problem.
Yep.
The great thing about DDoS mitigation is, I think, you know, Cloudflare, it's been our bread and butter for 10 years. We've got a very, very large network that's able to mitigate the largest attacks. So really DDoS, layer 3, layer 4 traditional DDoS mitigation, although very, very prevalent, is something that can be handled with relative ease. Web application firewall still very, very important. You know, making sure there are no layer 7 vulnerabilities. You know, we hear about SQL injection, cross-site scripting. It's amazing that most of the data breaches today, we've known about SQL injection for 20 years, maybe 25 years, maybe longer. Most of the data breaches we see today are still through SQL injection.
Right.
So you need a web application file to protect that. But I also think some businesses in the past have deployed web application firewall because it's a check mark for PCI compliance. You know, there's less audit requirement if you have a WAF. You can tick that off. But I really think as a business, you need to look deeper than that. You know, you can deploy a web application firewall, but how often are new rules being added to the firewall? What new rules are being implemented by the vendor to address the latest vulnerabilities? So at Cloudflare, we work with all of the big CMS platforms, you know, the operating system vendors, the OpenSSL project, and we sometimes get to learn about the new vulnerabilities before the general announcement, and then we deploy that fix into our firewall immediately, so that all of our customers are protected from day one. And then the third thing is definitely bot mitigation. Bots are getting very, very sophisticated and are a huge threat to our e-commerce customers at the moment. We're hearing it all over the world that one of the top of mind security concern is sophisticated bots, which, like I mentioned earlier, may not be able to be addressed with rate limiting and more traditional technologies.
All right. So I have a last question for you. You mentioned about the people who are from companies, right, moving to clouds and so on. So number one questions come up from my mind is, do companies, traditional companies moving to cloud services, do they need actually to reskill their current IT team, or do they need to actually fire the whole team, rehire people to do the cloud services? What's your suggestions?
Absolutely, it's they should reskill. You know, you've already got people who understand the symptoms and what security means and the different kind of attacks and how your systems may be vulnerable. The reskilling is a case of learning new tools. Learning new tools. You know, some of these tools are incredibly complex, and then that becomes a bigger problem. But really, what we focus on Cloudflare is we try to take away the complexity from the customer. So what we're doing in our backend is extremely complex, but we present it in a very, very nicely, easy to use UI with, you know, simple on-off switches, very simple configuration with great documentation through the platform. You know, there's a help link next to every feature and functionality and a full explanation of what that does. So it's always been our focus to make something that's very complex, very easy for our customers to consume. So, you know, at Cloudflare, we don't want to sell you professional services to do this work for you. We want to empower your teams to be able to, manage your own environments. Yeah.
So it sounds easier jobs for companies to do cloud services. All right, thank you so much. So I have a question for Isan. Because my understanding, you have managed hundreds of engineers under your belt. Knowing the engineers are in the front line managing big data and sensitive customer informations, for this webinar lighter side of conversations, I'd like to know to understand, because based on my experience, I know of e-commerce platforms, for example, where their engineers actually program themselves to win lucky draw prizes for themselves, just for fun. So my simple question to you is that how do you prevent and manage the young engineers who want to have fun and then some others breach the business practices and so on?
Okay, sure. So I think when you are managing big organization with hundreds of engineers, right? I'd like to take Charles' point earlier about standardization. Standardization is key. I mean, like, if you are managing big team, you have to standardize. You have to automate. There is no other way you will be able to run this big team, like providing access, identity, and then provisioning infrastructure, and then provisioning the access to the infrastructure as well. Those are the things that need to be automated. That's the first thing you need to be doing. Automate everything, standardize everything from access, deployment, servers, provisioning, and stuff. So this needs to be automated and standardized. You can implement things like secure pipeline, like the buzzword DevSecOps stuff, like using static security testing and analysis on your code. And then using secure base image standardized across your deployment. So there will be a less attack surface for the hackers if you are using containerization application. But then coming back to your questions, I guess it's more to business logic stuff. Therefore, what we can do is to improve the development process. Stuff like better coding review mechanism and branch management. Because the thing, if you are if the team is doing a lot of branches, like tens of hundreds branches, it's going to be very hard to track the changes. And then the other thing is to try to deliver as small as possible chunk to the production rather than deploying big, because when you can deploy smaller chunk into production, meaning you can easily review the code and then test it properly before it got deployed to the production. And then this type of misuse of authority can be mitigated. And the other thing I think you could be benefited is have a review of architecture before starting the development, including the including the review of the including the review of the endpoints and functionality that the service is going to be building. And then obviously better logging and monitoring mechanism, so we can track if there is a potential abuse.
Okay. So I have another question for you. So basically, you're on the forefront, the rocket science part of managing the platforms, ensuring the safety, securities, and so on, right? But understand for the Indonesia with the largest populations in the region and thousands of islands, right? You have customers from Jakarta as well as from village, from small towns, and so on. So each one of them, they have the different level of understanding of cybersecurities, right? So what are the possible ways of actually managing the expectations of the consumers, both from the sophisticated level in the main cities and also to the small village and small towns, to make sure that they are actually very well aware of cybersecurities, so that while you're actually working hard on your systems, but at the back, the other end, the front ends, the consumer actually do not know about how to manage all these cybersecurities.
Correct. So I'd like to take one of Sophie's point earlier. I mean, like, due to the rapid growth of internet user, especially in Indonesia, there are many of them which are not digital native individuals. Therefore, they are exposed to threats such as like phishing and social engineering. They are prone to fall into the trap, which leads them into victims. So they are going to a similar site, and then which steals their data, information, credentials, and it went as far as doing transactions, right? So the problem with this is such user will be redirected, like maybe for the case of Bukalapak, it will be a fake site of Bukalapak, but there are other cases like Instagram and whatnot as well that is being used as an e-commerce platform, and they are redirected to a fake account, and then they are doing transaction there. The thing is, when when the user is being pitched or transaction, they thought that they are being harmed by the brand, so they will be attacking the brand. Now, coming back to the Sophie's point, so it is very important for the public relations to be able to try to capture this situation as fast as it can, and then mitigate it before it is running around like wildfire. I think that is very important thing to do.
All right.
And
Okay.
and actually, we have faced some of these cases in Bukalapak.
Okay. And how do you solve it?
Yeah, exactly like that. I mean, like the PR went straight away, comfort the user that is being what to say, being hacked, so to say, and then try to, as much as possible, give explanation and then reward them with the compensation so that they feel that the brand is not doing harm to them.
Sure. Okay. So let's see if there's any questions from the audience. Doesn't seem to have one. I'd like to bring back the other two speakers together. Just in case you have questions for each other. Maybe James have a question for Sophie, or maybe Charles have a question for two of you. Can we bring back the two other panelists? Or they already left? Okay, so I think probably they are not there anymore. So anyway, thank you so much for your insights, James and Ishan. Also take this opportunity to thank Sophie and Charles for joining us today and give us valuable insights. So we wish the audience today good health, stay safe, and resilient digital businesses. Thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Escom. Escoms, are you still there?
For each channel, actually. So then on the what are the top? This is from the audience. What are the top cyber risks or attacks that you are concerned about, and what are the measures you have put in place or plan to implement?
Okay, so thanks for the question. The first thing, obviously, the one that we just talked about, phishing and social engineering, that is harming less digital native individuals, because it is very easy to mislead them into this kind of situation. Therefore, and then the other thing is, it is out of control from our perspective. So it could happen anytime, anywhere, without we knowing it. Therefore, it is one of the thing that need to be watched out. And then measurement is, obviously, we need to be always putting attention to social media's trends, and then mentions about the company, so that if anything anything bad being mentioned about the company, we can just like try to mitigate as fast as
what were the other benefits of implementing DDoS mitigation solutions?
Yeah, so I think DDoS attacks are so easy to launch these days. There are online cloud services. They usually call themselves stress testing services or something similar, where you can sign up for a very low cost and launch huge attacks that are going to knock most companies' infrastructure offline. And it's very, very low cost. So it's incredibly simple. Attackers don't need any technical knowledge to launch certainly network layer DDoS attacks. And even at Cloudflare, when somebody launches an attack against our customer, we sometimes see these attacks go on for 7 to 10 days. Even if they realize that it's on Cloudflare, they will keep trying and trying and trying and trying until eventually they give up. Now, if you imagine if you're not using a DDoS mitigation service, if your e-commerce store is offline for 7 to 10 days, you may not have a business any longer. You may have lost the trust of your customers, and people are not going to return. So, I can't stress how important it is to have a DDoS mitigation solution in place. On-premise DDoS mitigation solutions do not scale. We, as Gaurav mentioned in his presentation, we see attacks in excess of 1 terabit per second capacity. What's going to happen if you're going to get a hit with an attack of that size is your ISP is probably going to black hole you a long time before the attack gets to that size. So it's really critical in this day and age to have a DDoS mitigation solution. Then you need to understand there are always-on solutions such as Cloudflare, where we want, we're a full proxy architecture. We want our customers to pass all of their traffic through us all of the time, or you have an on-demand DDoS mitigation service. Many of the older solutions are on-demand based, whereas once an attack is detected, then you move traffic through to the DDoS mitigation service to clean. And the industry is getting better now, but a lot of the traditional services also used to end up work like a mobile phone roaming data plan, which was, you paid a base level subscription to the service, and then depending on the size of the attack they mitigated was how much money you paid for the provider. So, at Cloudflare we provide a fixed rate service and an always on DDoS mitigation service. And to answer the question, what's I think the biggest benefit is of keeping you up and online, and your business not losing the trust of its customers.
I actually have a question for James. Just come from my mind, right? For DDoS, can you actually sue the service providers or even the individuals who actually start all these DDoS kind of things?
They're pretty much usually untraceable. So the DDoS mitigation service is a stress testing services typically operate in highly unregulated countries. You pay in Bitcoin, which is theoretically untraceable. I mean, occasionally we hear stories that some of these groups do get caught and get arrested, but then new services spring up to take their place. So it's very, very difficult. You should always, I think, if you come under attack, you should always report the attacks to your local authority. And but many of the interestingly, many of the criminals, it's an extortion campaign. They'll usually start a small attack. They'll email you a ransom letter. They'll give you an address to send Bitcoin to for them to stop paying the attack. And we highly recommend that you don't ever pay the ransom, because you know what happens a few months later or a few weeks later, they come back again. And I personally dealt with an e-commerce customer in the UK a few years ago who 3 or 4 times paid the ransom to the hacker before finally came to.
I think those are all the questions for now. So I want to thank you, David, Charles, Sophia, James, and Ichsan for a very interesting and insightful discussion. I saw each of you tackled on those questions. And to end our webinar session, I would like to invite all the audience to actually complete this quick survey that will pop up on your screen just about now. And it's been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. And this has been a very momentous event for Escom, Cloudflare, and SIRS. And we can't thank you enough for joining us and making it happen. We hope that all the informative thoughts and ideas we exchanged help pave the way for a better and more secure approach in e-commerce security. And to further understand how Cloudflare solutions can guide you and secure your business, of course, please contact Gaurav or James. And as well as you do join us for our next upcoming events as well, which you'll all receive an email to with all the links as well. And should you wish to host your own event, also feel free to reach out to the Escom team at cybersecasia.org. And thank you all once again. Have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you, Babe. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
James.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, have a good day.
Have a good day.